section we're recording?
5 minutes.
What section?
Any section.
Ah.
Once we get warmed up, once we get loosened up.
Yes.
And then just... Hi guys, Geekonomics here once again with a little update and preview on the Sunday Times business pages. It's the 18th of October 2015. So before we get stuck into the business pages, let me just first of all, a few thanks really in terms of Geekonomics Meets episode 1 went out this week, and thank you very much for your support on that. It was really good to be able to do that, and I'd love to do that type of thing again. So if you do know anybody who you think might be willing, do please let me know. I would be most grateful of that. Thank you also to those of you who are new subscribers this week. Quite a number of you, so that's really encouraging. So thank you for that, and I'll try and obviously keep the materials coming for you. Those of you who are awaiting your Economist subscription, that will be with you this week, I hope. The first one, and remember it's a subscription to not only the hard copy of the magazine but also the digital online as well. You get a little code with that for the online, so you can keep up to date with that anytime, any place, anywhere. And anyone see Andrew Marr this morning? Lots of great stuff on Andrew Marr. The Chinese ambassador to the UK was on, because of course this week we have the visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping, Xi Jinping, and Xi Jinping will be coming to the UK this week primarily for George Osborne and David Cameron to sign up and seal a deal with regard to nuclear energy for the next 20 years, which will be worth several billion to the UK on a project which is worth some 24 billion in terms of public sector, public and private sector investment into the UK economy. So a huge fiscal stimulus into the UK economy, and all the associated multiplier effects that go alongside that. Multiplier and the accelerator, those of you in year 13 should be familiar with. And what else? Oh yes, Andrew Marr this morning was talking about the UK economy, the fact that we're having to ask all of these foreign nations now to basically bankroll the UK because we don't have the money ourselves to engage in all of these huge infrastructure projects, don't have the money nor the know-how. And so Andrew Marr was asking the commentators this morning whether or not we are now the begging bowl economy of Europe. Please, can we have some more of your investment, please? So let's get stuck into the business pages for the 18th of October 2015. So headline, as one might expect, is the Cameron seals nuclear pact with China, Britain handing Beijing the keys to nuclear industry with a big stake in the £24 billion Hinkley Point and rights to build a plant in Essex. So the partnership between China and the UK coming to the fore, and certainly this week one would anticipate that will be major headline news as Xi Jinping makes his way around various places in the UK this week and meets with various dignitaries and so on. So that's very interesting this week. The Facebook article which I featured and talked about last week with regard to Facebook paying only £4,327 in corporation tax in the UK, another one of these big companies exploiting not only the very low corporation tax rates in the UK, which makes us competitive of course, attracts big industry, but then very clever methods of getting their money out of the UK so they don't have to pay corporation tax on it. It's talking about the fact that over the next 3 years, staff bonuses in Facebook UK will be 250 million, and yet this company paying such little corporation tax. Distressing. Oh, and here's another one. I didn't even notice this one. Hamleys. I remember Hamleys as a boy. Every time my parents went to London, they always used to bring me a little treat back from Hamleys. Nice little jigsaw puzzle or something. Chinese set to buy toy store chain for £100 million. So getting in on the nuclear, getting in on the retail. Desperate times, ladies and gentlemen, desperate times. Okay, second page then. We're into some stuff on the Brexit. So the Brexit is the campaign. There are two campaigns, one to stay in and one to get out of the European Union. And this is an article by Catherine Cooper and Laura Onita, and it's carried on actually a couple of pages further on by Catherine Cooper. Goes into it in a little more detail. Catherine Cooper stating that for the first time ever, by a YouGov poll anyway, the latest YouGov poll puts the Out campaign ahead for the first time since November of last year. So there's a little bit about that, and there's also a little bit of discussion about the campaign with regard to remaining in the European Union, talking about the fact that it costs the UK per person about £340 per person to be in the European Union, yet the benefits per person are about £3,000. So, and she's talking about the fact that that's never really mentioned. There's all sorts of good stuff about trade arrangements, and those of you who are in either year 11 or year 13 will be looking at trade and the benefits and disadvantages of being in the European Union, where we've got, 500 million people who we can sell our goods and services to without any problems of trade protectionism, trade barriers, tariffs, etc., all of that type of thing. So one might ask oneself, really, is a Brexit the best way forward? And it says the UK's EU referendum is one of the key global political wildcards for 2016-17. So, a very interesting article. Let's just flick back, see what else we've got. Oh yes, this caught my eye. Very small article. Mario Draghi. So Mario Draghi is the president of the European Central Bank. And the European Union, its economy of 500 million people, has been struggling to get out of the very prolonged and deep recession. And so quantitative easing has been taking place at a value of £60 billion per month. So the European Central Bank, the ECB, has been pumping in £60 billion into the banking sector in the European Union to try and get the economy going. It's one of those other levers that we've talked about before: fiscal policy, supply side policy, monetary policy, and there's another strand of monetary policy, this quantitative easing. So they're talking about turning the taps on, or increasing the 60 billion a month to maybe 70, 80, 90 billion a month, which is all very well in practice, but those of you who have watched my quantitative easing video, which you will find somewhere, the unwinding of quantitative easing by the EU, the UK, the US of A might be rather complicated. Nobody knows what will happen. So approach with care, ladies and gentlemen. Nice little article as well. Water giants payouts risk union revolt. This is about Northumbrian Water. And Northumbrian Water, obviously close to home, employs 3,200 people. And it was taken over for 2.4 billion by Li Ka-shing's Chung Kong infrastructure in 2011. And this guy, 87 years old, one of the richest people in the world, worth a fortune estimated at $26 billion US. And it's just talking about the package that the chief executive is going to receive, which shareholders may be rather annoyed about. Right, now let's get to Dave Smith once again, ladies and gentlemen. If anyone knows David Smith, love him to come and speak to the students at school. This week, David Smith is talking about the Charter for Budget Responsibility, whereby the government hope to, sign up to an agreement, whereby they hope to put the budget, that's the relationship between government spending and taxation, they hope to put that into surplus by 2020. And that would be the first time that's happened in about 20 years. The Cameron government been trying very hard to bring this deficit down, but it's proving, not only is it proving very difficult, but it's proving to take longer probably than they anticipated. And what David Smith is saying is that if they go for this 2020, bring it back to surplus, well, that means that they may have to tighten up on spending and raise taxes more than is really necessary. Just discussing that. Erwin Stelter, talking about the US economy, talking about Obama, obviously his successor coming soon, and talking about the fact that they will have difficult times ahead with regard to the economy. It's nice to see Stelter, ladies and gentlemen, makes a little reference here to John Maynard, our friend John Maynard Keynes, saying fiscal policy is neutered. Even Keynes might balk at an increase in deficit spending by a country so deeply in hock that the rating agencies might downgrade its debt, pushing up the interest rates that investors will demand of an already profligate borrower. Those of you who were in my lecture on Monday last, I showed you the US debt counter and the fact that they're now borrowing more than they can output in a year. So their GDP is around $18 trillion, largest economy in the world. Yet their borrowing is now more than that. Ours is around 80% of GDP. US government's about 100 and something percent of GDP. People in glass houses and all that. Something very close to home, ladies and gentlemen, for us here in the northeast. The steel industry. Tragic. Absolutely tragic. 2,200 jobs going as the Redcar plant closes. Why is the Redcar plant closing? Because of a number of factors. Obviously we have the slowdown in the BRIC nations. Commodity prices are falling as a consequence of a lack of demand. But it talks about Chinese steel makers dumping steel at rock bottom prices onto the global market. And as a consequence, the Redcar plant just cannot cope. Absolutely devastating for the people of Redcar. And I think that's all, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I'm going to say about this week's article. Those of you who live in the northeast, there's a big article here about the owner of Newcastle United, Sports Direct, Mike Ashley, and his chief executive. And it's all about the fact that they are going to be taken to court with regard to, what is it with regard to? It is with regard to their claims of ruthless working practices. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Keep subscribing and see you next week.